Hey, everybody, thrilled to have you here. Excited for another epic debate. Want to just mention a couple of things. We have a quick change up last minute. I made plans where I actually booked two things at once. And so I can't stay for this one, which seriously pains me. I feel terrible because I'm really excited to listen to this one. So I'll have to listen to it later. But I wanted a quick drop in just before I had to go to the other thing and just say, thank you so much, folks. We are so excited that today we just hit 20,000 subscribers. So I couldn't say thank you enough to everybody. And so given that that just happened today, is like, oh man, I want to say thank you so much for just hanging out here, making it fun. And that's why like we've started it, is it's just a fun time. And most of all, thanks as well to the speakers, people like TJump and Red, who we really appreciate. They come on and they make the channel fun because they're debating about things they're passionate about. And so we really appreciate them. And also want to say a huge thanks. Yesterday, the debate with Kent Hovind, we raised $280 for COVID-19 relief. So that is all going to the American Red Cross. Want to say thanks so much, everybody, for all of your super chats yesterday, as it's going to a good cause. And the way I see it is, hey, we disagree on a lot of things, that's for sure. But nonetheless, we do agree on some things. And that's, in this case, unifying together to make a positive difference in the world. Even if it's a small one, it's $280 that'll help get medical supplies to people who really need it. So with that, I'm really excited for tonight's debate. This is going to be a lot of fun. I want to say thanks, huge thanks to Praise for stepping in last minute. As like I said I had kind of this attack of conscience where I thought, I can't bail on this other person. I feel terrible. So given that I'd already made those plans earlier, I'm thankful that Praise could step in. And I want to say the guests that we have tonight, I am stoked to have them. You've seen them many a times before. In fact, this isn't the first time they've crossed swords. Over a year ago, they debated, and these guys are both experienced debaters. And I want to mention their links are in the description. So if you're listening and you're like, I like that, you can hear plenty more where this came from by clicking on their links in the description. So I'm going to hand it over to Praise to moderate for tonight. And just want to again say thanks so much, folks, just for supporting the channel. You guys make it awesome. It's not my channel, it's our channel. Like I feel like this, especially like between all these different things, like the speakers and you as well as the audience, like it's really just kind of a community. And I just want to say thanks so much for being a part of it, folks. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Praise. And I really appreciate you guys again. And Praise, the floor is all yours to moderate tonight.
Absolutely, James. I appreciate the opportunity. So hopefully this will be a good, reasonable debate where there's try to have no people trolling or anything like that, but I'll try to take care of that if it does. So I think Red's going to go first. He is in the affirmative. He would say it is evil, while TJump is against that, and he would say no, it should not be deplatformed. So go ahead, Red, when you're ready. The floor is yours.
Alrighty. So this debate title is a little different than what we agreed to. Coming in, we were talking about the effectiveness of methods in curbing things like Nazism from spreading and like stuff like that. So obviously, there's different levels here in what you have access to. So when an option on social media and stuff, deplatforming is the most effective way in stopping the spread. So we don't have a ton of data on it, but we do have some data that points that way. So there's a study done by Georgia Tech that looked at 2015 Reddit bans that took place around several controversial subreddits, things like was it "Our Fat People Hate" and I won't say the other one, not risk your channel, but it was a racial slur for black people, stuff like that. And so they banned those channels. And looking at the data, this Georgia Tech study found that it reduced on the Reddit platform, reduced the hate speech and stuff that was in there with their definition by upwards of 80 to 90%. Those users. Now, there was some migration away. They found to alternative platforms that are much, much smaller. But anyways, effectively, those bannings got rid of the problem, or at least from this study that we have, the data and stuff we have here. Some other things that aren't quite peer reviewed and stuff doing that way, that do this way, but that do some analysis on it. The New York Times, Alex Jones, got yeeted off of YouTube, Facebook, I think Instagram at the time. And so they did, and it's rather small, but in their quick analysis, he was averaging about 1.4 million page hits a day before that. And then after the ban, because he didn't get banned on everything, that cut in half to about 715,000 a day. So it shows that this is going to stop the spread of those things. And effectiveness, if that's your goal, and that's the effective manner that you want to go, that's good. Platforming works, right? There's a reason why these alt-right people, Milo Yiannopoulos or and stuff like that, decry being deplatformed, right? Because it works. And I mean, anecdotally here in Yiannopoulos' own words, where do I have it? Let's see. In his email, trying to lash out here stuff, he said, social justice warriors machinate to get speakers canceled and social networks purge conservatives for the same reason. No platforming work, right? So they argue against the being deplatformed because they know, hey, that reduces their spread. And if you've followed any kind of updates on Yiannopoulos over the time here, like $4 million in debt. He's fallen apart. He's looking for, try to find his way back in with the furry community. Because if you're not familiar with that, there's a bit of an alt furry thing that went on about 2014, 15, 16. Tried to get there. They kicked him out of that. Barred him from doing all that other stuff. And he's just recently popped back up with the new censored.tv, which is Gavin McGinnis's new attempt to try to get around being deplatformed. But yeah, that works. Now, in situations where you can't deplatform, there are other methods that are more effective in stopping the curb than debates, right? And so these would be like your video essays, research things. Those tend to have far more beneficial impact. And so looking at some of the data we looked at do debates, like what we do here, looked at political science stuff for like presidential elections. And what we find there is that debates, marginal at best, negligible in terms of changing minds and opinions. No style debates. Now, when people do change their minds, there's other information that comes out, other things that come here. So, like the news coverage on something might change somebody's, or a new scandal or something like that comes out. Those are the things that change their minds here. But for the most part, in presidential thing, and I think that's the closest as we get to if we're going to go and debate a Nazi, right? But yeah, that's the core of my position. Tom wants to go on there. That's his.
Thank you, Red, for your opening, and it's all yours, TJump.
Yeah, so Red was right. The topic we're discussing tonight is what works better to stop the spread of the ideology. So does deplatforming work to do that? No, it has the exact opposite effect. What it does do, it works on individuals, like deplatforming Milo Yiannopoulos or InfoWars guy, I forgot his name. They lost a lot of money because they were deplatformed, but it had no effect on stopping people from believing the ridiculous things that were being perpetrated by those, because the people who agreed with those ideologies already agreed with those ideologies. It's not, deplatforming does nothing. It doesn't accomplish anything except just to cost those particular people who you're deplatforming money. It's kind of like fighting a virus. If you put in an antibiotic and it kills off all of the weak strains of the virus, but then the stronger strains survive. This is kind of like what debate does. If you put like Nazis or whoever up in a debate platform, and you have someone who ridicules their idea and shows how stupid it is, then it's going to immunize the most people from the idea. If you just deplatform the person, it accomplishes nothing. It just brushes it under the rug. In order to really immunize the culture from the bad idea, you have to put it up there and platform it and show how ridiculous it is. That's why one of the most impactful ways in changing people's minds, especially from like creationism in the past like 10 or so years, was the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate. Ken Ham was shown to be so stupid, and he's one of the leading proponents of creationism, that it had a huge impact on the people who believed that ideology. It showed how ridiculous it is and caused a lot of people to lose their faith because of the fact that they had that debate. If you just deplatformed Ken Ham, it would have changed no one's mind. It wouldn't have affected the ideology one way or the other, wouldn't have stopped the spread, it wouldn't have helped the spread, it would have done nothing. And so the problem here is that when you deplatform someone, you do nothing. You don't help the spread, you don't stop the spread, you do nothing. In order to really immunize a culture and to stop the spread of an ideology, you have to put it up there against a more reasonable ideology to show how ridiculous it is by comparison. That's what really immunizes a culture from a bad ideology. Now, it seems like it's the opposite, because if you put someone like a flat earther or a young earth creationist or a Nazi up on a platform, it'll give the other people who identify with that ideology a rallying point where they can then build a culture around them, which makes it look like it's growing, when in fact it's decreasing. So even though that the people who already agree with that ideology may join and under a single banner, which means makes it look like, for example, flat earth creationists or flat earthers have been growing in the population, really it hasn't. Really all that's happened is the people who already identify with that worldview have grouped together, while the vast majority of people who were like on the fence all said, wow, that looks really dumb, we're probably not going to adopt that. And the same thing happened in the far right cases, like in the Charlottesville protests. When we see those kinds of things happening, the far right is mocked and ridiculed and shown to be the ridiculous state that they are, which immunizes more people from that ideology than deplatform them. Deplatform them would accomplish, again, nothing. It just does nothing. Now, it does work on individuals. Like deplatforming Milo cost him to lose a lot of money, and he's in tons of debt because he just spent all his money for no reason. But it doesn't work on ideologies. If you want to battle an ideology, which is, as Red mentioned, the point of our debate, you need to platform it. You need to show how ridiculous it is, not hide it under the rug.
Appreciate your opening, Tom. Now we'll have the open discussion period when you guys are ready.
Yeah. So I would ask a couple questions. He gave the Ken Ham, Bill Nye debate a whole lot of weight into changing people's minds about that stuff. Do you have any data on that? Right, that it has.
Just the accounts of the people who continually say that was one of the big factors in what changed their minds. So if we can take that as a polling rate and then expand it out to the local population of majority atheists, we can see, yeah, it had a pretty big impact. I mean, we could use other debates as well, like the Four Horsemen, Hitchens, Harris, Dawkins, Dennett. Like their movements to show how ridiculous theism is also had a major impact. I mean, the big increase from the shift in the amount of people who identified as atheists in America over the past like 10 or so years has been pretty much entirely attributed to them and people standing up and debating these ideas. So we know debates work. There's 100% like proof of this just in those guys who make all this money publishing these books doing exactly that. And it increased the amount of atheism by like double or triple, or non-religious by double or triple in the span of a few years. So yeah, we know this works if you can do it.
Well, no, we don't have that data. Like the Ken Ham stuff, you're using anecdotes in that. There's no broader study of the data on how many minds were changed or how many stuff there. So like when people that debate stuff and debate with Nazis here, they'll take like Destiny, his biggest argument when he goes into debate. He comes in with the idea that it's 40-40-20, right? And how it goes here. And when we do like other debates and stuff, like when we have the data and we can look at the polling data and the changes and stuff here, when we do like presidential debate, that the changes aren't there. Like, so the people that are already in there. So, you know, without the data to say that, oh, this great big debate made all the change and stuff here. Now, I'll say otherwise though, that calling these ideas, writing these books, or doing these things separately outside of debate, right? And not looking at it debate did have a big effect, bigger stuff. And from like our political science stuff and the studies and stuff we've seen with presidential polling and stuff there, that's where the changes occur, right? And so I'm not against arguing against these bad ideas, right? I do that on my channel right now, right? I do response videos and stuff like that. So I'm not against that, and that is an effective way to do it. More effective than debate. Debate's pretty marginal negligible based on debate stuff here. I mean, these people are still around because they're, you know, where's the decline in their popularity, right? It's not really gone.
Well, again, I already addressed that. It appears that there's not decline because the people who already identify with that label then group themselves into a culture. But the larger culture in general has been immunized against that. So the majority of people are less likely to become of that ideology because it was criticized. And we know debates work because, again, the Hitchens, Harris, Dawkins, and more people saw the debates than read their books. So we know for a fact those are one of the major contributing factors to the rise of non-religious in America. It's absolute fact there.
I mean, do you have any of the data on that to suggest that?
Absolute fact. I mean, I could find it, but I don't really need to. Like, what do you think changed their minds? Was it just
I
random?
mean, you do need
Is,
the
is, it,
data
is it just
to
a
make that
coincidence
claim,
that
right?
is it
You
just a
brought nothing
coincidence?
to it.
No. This is just absolute fact here. You don't even get an objection here. Is it just a coincidence that the amount of atheism doubled and tripled in a matter of years that happened to just be the exact same years these guys were talking and debating? Like, no, obviously not.
So,
I mean, I
would-
could find the data on this. It's pretty simple, but it's pretty obvious that it had a major impact.
so
You can just ask like most atheists. That's most of them are atheists because of these debates.
So you're attributing it all to these debates, right? The
Oh,
atheist
no.
movement. No, like I said there's different ways to do it. We're talking specifically debate, right? You can talk
Right.
about these ideas without platforming the people, right? And make
Sure.
the changes. And the atheist movement certainly, part of that, the open speaking stuff like that, did help push, change people's minds and stuff, and atheism stuff. But it wasn't, the contention here is whether or not the debate platforming and debating them does it, and that's where I'm asking you for the data.
Well, again, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like if you put up, like if you can poll the atheists, the majority of them are going to say, yeah, these debates had a huge impact. It's not their books. I mean, some of them read, the very small minority of people read their books. More people watch the debates, and the debates had the impact. So all you have to do is ask the atheist community. It's obvious they had an impact. I mean, I could find the polling data for it. We could just go to an atheist convention and just start asking people randomly. We're going to find the results are pretty obvious.
So
yeah,
just
these
go.
debates
Well,
had a
hold
big
on.
impact.
No, that's an issue.
Not really.
Just go,
I mean,
no, that's
not in a
bad.
constitutional
That's
issue.
bad data collection right there.
It doesn't make a difference. I mean, this is not like a controversial point. Like, did the debates have an impact? Ask any atheist group ever; they're going to say yes, because they all
if you
did.
only go ask the atheists, if you're going to poll and collect the data and say, hey, the debates had this huge impact and did all this other stuff, you have to know the broader data that watched it and how many people changed their mind, and to determine whether or not that had a significant impact on it, like the debates specifically. And we don't have that data.
I'm not sure what you're talking about here. So all I need to support my position is, did a lot of atheists who watch these debates, were they impacted to change from theism to atheism? If that is the case, then yes, that supports my position. That's all you need. I don't need the larger data. I don't need to know if this is 1% or 10%. It doesn't make a difference. It had a significant impact. And we know it's a very significant
to call
impact.
it a significant impact, you do need the data, right?
Again, I can just look at the change in atheism in those exact years from the time when they're active in America. Like, that is sufficient data to work on this. Like, I don't need to prove there is necessarily a correlation there. That is sufficient.
No, it's not. For
It
say
is.
the
It
debates that
absolutely
these
is.
debates are,
I
that's
don't
not
need anything
sufficient statistical.
I can say that there was a significant change in the amount of non-religious and atheism that happened in the exact years these guys were active. And now either that happened by chance for no reason, or these guys had this impact, and it's more reasonable to say they had the impact. Do I need to prove it? No, that's sufficient for the argument. We can just be done right there. That proves my point.
That doesn't.
You can disagree with it or not, but I don't care. It just makes you an idiot. So this is absolutely the fact. You just go to any atheist community, they're like, yep, this works.
No, that's not how you do data analysis at all.
I don't. It's perfectly
argument,
fine.
right?
It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly reasonable. Yes, there are a major impact for big speakers who promoted atheism in a way that hadn't been done for years, and there was this big impact in the amount of people who were non-religious at the exact same time. If you're saying those aren't correlated, you're a moron. So I don't need anything more than that.
So no, we're not talking about correlation here. We're talking about causation. You're
you
saying
don't need
that
to prove causation in science. You don't need to prove causation.
These debates have a significant impact on it, then the causal impact was specifically the debates, with bringing another, creationist or a theist up here, debating an atheist, and those had the causal impact. Yes, you need the data to do that, right? You can't just say, well, general trends seem to change. It seems to coincide here, and correlation there. It's like, correlation is not causation. It's pretty stock and standard. Right? I don't know why you would.
Again, this demonstrates as much of a correlation and causation as much as any scientific poll. That's sufficient. There are only a certain number of things that it could be. It could be their books. It could be their speaking. It could be their debates. And that's pretty much it. Those are the only options. And if it's not one of those three, that's some other random coincidence that just happened to happen in the same place. So we know it was one of these three. And we can ask the atheists who are in the community which one had the most impact. And they're going to say the debates. This is not a controversial point.
Again, it's anecdotal evidence, right?
That's sufficient, because it's the anecdotes of the people of the mind who changed their minds. What changed your mind? Okay, that's reason to show this is the cause of the change of their mind. Yes, that's fine. So again, this doesn't help your position at all.
Talk about debates in general, right? You're arguing. So I go ask somebody who did change their mind and say, here, but where's the other 95% of the people, or whatever the percentages, or 99% who didn't change their mind, right, and left away, whatever, and went on there. And
That,
so
that
if you
doesn't
say,
that
well,
doesn't matter to the
debates,
point. Like
no,
it
hold on.
doesn't need to be 50% to prove my point. It only needs to be 1% to prove my point. Like if this debate is a reasonable method to change people's mind at 1%, given the fact that it's really hard to change people's minds at all, then we know debate is a very successful method at changing people's minds. Debates in general. I don't know.
No, that's not. It's not.
What?
I'm sorry, that's not how this works for the argument or the data. Right?
What are you
It's
talking
there's
about?
need for it. Like just
Because
so I grab whoever and just grab a random sample from an atheist convention, and they all however many people that is a debate, and they're so debate had a significant impact. No, your sample size isn't there. Make any of these claims, like make the analysis of the cause, right?
Right. So the sample size is the polling of the amount of atheists over the years in America that these guys were active. That is the sample size. That is a significant portion. That is a big number. The atheists multiplied in those years. That's a big number. Then to know why that happened, we can then take the smaller sample size and ask the atheists in the conventions, who are these people who we're talking about, why did you change? And they say, did the debates have an impact? Many of them are going to say yes. Those two things are correlated, very, very strongly correlated, to the point where you can say, yeah, it's probably causation.
I mean,
So
you don't have the data, unfortunately.
I do have the data. Like
You
that
don't.
is sufficient. That is sufficient in every scientific community to qualify as correlation and causation. That is sufficient. But again, this isn't really a controversial point. Does debate work? Yes, we have lots of examples of debates working.
Like
The question is,
negligibly from the data that we have on similar field and stuff.
What do you mean negligibly? Again, so it's hard to change people's minds. You can't change people's minds easily. So if there is something that works to change 1% or 2% of people's minds, that is huge. That is a big difference. So debates do that. We know debates work. They work better than pretty much anything else. Like the books do not. The books, people who read the books can have their minds changed because they're actually interested in the topic. But the amount of people who read the books is very, very small. Books have essentially no impact on politics. Like most of the people on the right-wing Republican side don't read the books. Same with the left side. They don't read the books. The books don't have any impact in the political landscape. Like the deplatforming of Donald Trump or whatever, not mention him, or not deplatforming the right-wing ideas in the election, the Donald Trump versus Hillary election, caused the media to think that the Hillary had a 91% chance of winning or whatever, because no one actually responded to their polls because they were polling from a select set of people.
Okay, so you're mixing up projections with polling here. The polling data and the final results in the 2016 election were pretty, spot on, pretty strong, good, within margin of error, right? And so the 91% stuff is a projection that you build out from a poll. So arguing polling data is wrong because somebody had a bad projection system doesn't work.
That's not what I was arguing. So I was arguing that their work, because of the fact that the ideas of the voting for Trump was stigmatized, I mean, less people actually responded to it in the Trumpian, say they were going to vote for Trump, than they would have if it wasn't stigmatized. So the idea is that if you stigmatize and deplatform an idea and you make it undesirable, you don't change the idea. You change 0% of the people who believe the idea. All you do is make them not tell you that they believe the idea. Deplatforming does not work as a method to restrict an ideology. All it does is hide the ideology from being there, brushes it under the rug.
I mean, it curbs the spread of the ideology. The reach and stuff is gone now.
No, that's the thing. It does nothing. It doesn't do anything. Like, again, if you present an ideology like creationism or young earth or whatever, the people who already agree with that ideology are going to group together, but more people are going to be turned away from it than turned towards it. So all you're doing by deplatforming is stopping the reduction of the ideology. You're working against yourself. Deplatforming has the opposite effect of what you want it to do, unless your goal is to deplatform individuals. If your goal is to deplatform individuals, that works fine. But if your goal is to stop the ideology, you're doing it wrong. You have to platform it more and show it's ridiculous to stop the ideology. Deplatforming it does the opposite of that. All it does is stop people from being deconverted.
All right, so where's the data on that?
There's lots of data on it. Again, I'll just go with the atheism community. That's sufficient.
Well, no, present some data to it, right? I presented some data to point out the reduction of spread.
Well, that didn't work. That just shows that there was less hate speech on Reddit. It didn't stop at all. It didn't change any of the ideologies at all. None of your data actually supports your conclusion. You're just saying that there was less hate speech on Reddit. Like, okay, does that
it stopped the spread of hate speech? So if I go into the study a little further, yes, it decreased 80-90% from this study here, and it did not migrate to other Reddit.
Yeah, but the
boards,
question
whatever they
isn't,
call it.
do people openly talk about racism? The question is, do you stop people from believing racism? That is the question. Do you fight the ideology? And then my answer, as I addressed in the opening and 5 minutes ago, is no. All you do is brush it under the rug. If you stigmatize an ideology, you're just going to get people to stop talking about it. You're not going to change any minds. That fails. So your own study doesn't support your conclusion. All it does is say that you stigmatized an idea and you got people to stop talking about it. But that didn't do anything to stop them from believing it.
So if we go into the study further, well, we'll leave that out here, but the question is debate, specifically what we're doing here, if that does it here, right? So as I said in my opening, right, deplatforming will stop the spread, stop the reach that they have, and then you can do other things, especially in situations where you can't deplatform them, right? They follow the rules and they've got backing from
Fox News
organizations, Fox News or something like that, right? Where it's not always there. You make the videos debunking in the ideas, right? The debates, compared to doing that, from all the data I've seen, just it's not there, right? It's marginal, negligible in doing that, right? Where debate does work, yes, according to the social science stuff and stuff I've seen.
According to the social science stuff I've seen, that doesn't work at all. Again, if you no young Earth creationists and flat Earths don't watch your videos. They don't care about what you have to say. They watch the flat Earthers videos. So if you want to actually have an effect on flat Earthers, you have to bring the flat Earthers on your show, and then you have both your audience and their audience watching, and that's where you can have some of them actually have an effect. That's why we showed the atheist debates work, because they bring in theists to watch their ideologue, Ken Ham or whatever, and they see him get destroyed, and that's what is convincing to them. Just presenting counter arguments does nothing. Again, we know confirmation bias, that doesn't work. It has the opposite effect in all social psychology, just to present counter information. It does not change people's minds. In order to change people's minds, you have to take their authority and show them to be not very good at what they're saying, or ridiculous by comparison. That does have an impact.
So hold on, I brought up, now this is anecdotal, it's a couple people, so it's not a full data set to work from, but if you're gonna rely just anecdotal stuff, and that's fine.
Well, I didn't bring up anecdotal stuff there. I specifically listed confirmation bias, which is widely studied in philosophy and psychology and all kinds of fields. We know confirmation bias, just presenting counterfactual information, does not change people's minds. It has the opposite effect.
So, but anyways, let's go back into the anecdotal stuff. So I brought up Sargon. Sargon goes on and debates plenty of people, right? Especially, so if we want to know the ones where he was completely embarrassed and stuff here, Christy Winters kind of beats him around. Sargon's got almost 1 million subs on his main channel. Now he's practically abandoned it because it's been fully demonetized, and Christy Winters has got 10,000, right? So even though Carl was rhetorically just beaten into the dirt, just destroyed every time he goes on and talks with Christy, his audience is still growing, his spread is still going, right? And so this is, like I said, it's one anecdotal situation here, and just here, so it's not all here, but this is part of why I was talking about the need proper data collection and study to determine the effects of the debate and how it works, especially on social media and stuff like we're doing here. It seems more often that for whatever marginal gains you get in people's minds being changed in the debate, there's still the spread keeps going up on the other side, the counter's there, so it's more negative than positive, it would seem, right? Like I said, anecdotal, don't have the full data to go over that, and I'm willing to admit that.
Well, your example, I mean, I don't think Christy Winters did destroy Sargon in that. I think that though she understands a lot more about science than he does, his ideological points resonated more with people. Like, it's easier to understand what he says than what she says, because she talks more academically than he does. And so he actually probably won that debate in most people's minds. As opposed to the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate, where Bill Nye said it so simply and so easy, that's why he won, because everybody could understand it. So the criterion here for what it qualifies as destroying someone, it means it has to be simple enough that literally anybody can understand it, specifically your opposing demographics. What Christy Winters did was she used academic sources, which no one of Sargon's audience really read or looked at or understood or anything, so it's not really surprising that had no impact at all. But to go back to your previous point, as I said, when you platform someone like a Nazi or a flat earther or whatever, the people who already identify with that ideology are going to group around that, which makes it look like it's more popular, when really it's not. Again, the vast majority of people watching this are going to be, I realize how ridiculous it is, and be immunized against the ideology. So more people turned away that could have been adopted by this ideology than people who actually just moved into that culture. So actually, even though it looks like it's growing because they're all grouping under one name, it's actually decreasing, which is like why we saw the creationism being destroyed throughout history because of these ideologies. Even though people group together under one ideologue, it's not an increase to the amount of creationists. It's not spreading the ideology. It's just the same people who already agree with it going under one label. It's not actually an increase. So like the same thing would apply to the right wing proponents. It's like in the Charlottesville thing, they were stigmatized. Most people in the culture were immunized against the right wing things because of the way they acted in that protest, more so than the number of people who actually joined them because of it.
So we're gonna have to see the data on that. That's
I'm stealing this straight from
Cy Gart,
pretty
popular.
So you can ask him for that. I'm stealing this straight from Cy Gart because I had this conversation with him.
I didn't see the conversation, so I don't know the data. So I'd have to see the data on it, because a lot of those ideas that were in the Charlottesville rally are still widely held within Republican circles, right? It's so I'd have to see the data that they were so humiliated and destroyed. Now, what happened, because they tried to do a Unite the Right 2, people didn't want to go out because of the negative stigmatization, right? So you don't have any data that says that, hey, they went out and made a fool of themselves, and now everybody's against it. Everybody disbelieves it, stuff there.
I didn't say everybody again. So remember, it's really hard to change.
A little hyperbolically
minds
here, all right, but that this had a significant impact of changing people's minds against them, right?
Yeah, news organizations and many people did polling on the right wing both before and after these kinds of organizations, and saw a significant dislike or more agitated viewpoint against the right wing in these areas. We have an echo.
Got the echo.
But so yeah, we do have data on that. We do show that after these kinds of rallies.
To that data?
Is it still an echo? So we do have data on that. We do show that those kinds of rallies do have a negative impact when they're doing some stupid things and embarrassing themselves. People start to turn away from those ideologies and start to see them in a more negative light, which
do you have a link to that? I'm curious to see.
Sure. Yes, I definitely do. Like, that's a pretty common study in social psychology.
Send it my way then.
But it's kind of like confirmation bias. It's a common thing that happens regularly and is studied all across the board in lots of different cases. So like there are studies done on lynching in African-American communities, and how when those happen, it actually causes a greater stigmatization of the ideology of the people who they attribute to. It's like same like Black Lives Matter, and the killing of African-Americans by cops causes a massive dislike of cops. Like, this is a really common phenomenon, that when an ideology does something stupid, people start to see them as stupid.
All right. I mean, I'd have to see the data to spread it through. So I don't know where else we'll go here, but
yeah, I'm good. I think I presented my point pretty well.
All right. And I don't know where we want to go from. Talk about here, if we want to go to Q&A or what. A little early for that, but
how's your quarantine been? Do anything fun?
Doing all right.
Yeah, that's good. Been doing lots of exercise, biking and jogging mostly, rollerblading. What is it you normally debate? Is it science stuff or flat earth stuff?
What I normally debate?
Usually, like on your channel.
Oh, on my channel, I don't. I do politics.
Politics?
I do some atheism stuff as well, but yeah. I don't know if...
yeah, if we could try to keep this conversation moving along here a little bit.
Yeah, we're ready to go to Q&A. We pretty much hashed out our positions.
Hashed it out, yeah.
Well, we have like 3 or 4 of them, so if you guys want to tackle those, we can do that now if you guys want to.
Sounds good to me.
Get to it. Just about better than going around in circles.
Yep.
Go to the questions and see if we can expand on that.
All right. So our first super chat is from Steven Steen. And he says, "Why is the moderator an evolution supporter?" straight up trolling there, Steven. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm not gonna respond to that one. We got a $10 super chat from General Ballsack. Question for Red Venture. Should someone of the ideology that rich people should be murdered be deplatformed? It seems to me that deplatforming always targets those on the right.
Yeah, if you're going to advocate killing people, yeah. That's something that would fall under any kind of the guidelines and get you off, or should get you yeeted off these platforms.
Thank you for your answer. And here's Sigi Fredo Sarabia. As atheists, how does each justify censoring or debating an opinion without foundation for having a matter of fact in which information should be debated or deplatformed to begin with? Or question mark, question mark, question mark.
Well, we have facts in reality. So if you're a flat earther, we could just say you're objectively wrong, go away. That would be a way to assess which matters of facts we could talk about as the ones that are actually facts. But I think he's asking like morality. Like we have most atheist philosophers believe in objective morality. We can do that without a God. So we can assess facts and values without any reference to a God easily.
So what was the question again?
This is what Sigi Fredo Sarabia said. As atheists, how does each justify censoring or debating an opinion without a foundation for having a matter of fact in which information should be debated or deplatformed to begin with? Or question mark, question mark, question mark.
Well, a lot of it depends on your goals, right, and what you want to do. So if you want to stop the spread of certain things, you'll have different goals. Whether or not you're a consequentialist and that aligns with your morals, or doesn't. So that's where you make the distinction from. It doesn't necessarily.
Thank you for your response. This is from Kakarot. So the question is, yeah, the Kakarot. I'm actually making my own response video to some of the things that I didn't address in the debate. Is it okay if I download the debate and include snippets of Hovind in my video? You're gonna have to contact James on that. I have no clue.
I mean, James is pretty fine with mirroring on your channel.
Yeah, if you were part of the
It would
debate,
still be
you're
fair
usually
use.
allowed to do that.
And it'd still be fair use as well, right? I can take anybody's video offline if I'm going to do a response to it, cut out relevant clips I'm going to argue against. Fair use.
Gotcha. So here is Amy Newman for Red. Who gets to choose who gets deplatformed and who's allowed to debate?
Well, I mean, that'd be the platform itself, isn't it? Right? Like, we can put social pressure on for certain things to other people, right? But ultimately, it falls on the platform, right, to make that decision.
Gotcha. So here's Philip Servant Jack, $10 super chat. Thank you for your super chat. I'm not quite convinced that an increase in debates caused an increase in atheism, although I agree they are correlated. Could they both be caused by some other variable? Both of you can answer that.
I mean, yeah, they could be. There's always a possibility, but saying that there's some other random variable that had nothing to do with the major atheists at the time period, and the fact that that time period is when the major shift happened seems very strange. I mean, it's possible. It's like maybe there's just some quantum mechanical fluctuation in people's brains that caused them to change minds, but it seems far more plausible that the cause of the change in beliefs is due to the fact that those big atheists happened to speak up at those times. I mean, that was because that's really the only thing that changed, major change that occurred in those time periods.
Well, I mean, September 11th is a big reason to push those people to the forefront, and their talking point gave them the publicity, right? And so if you're going to look at the variable that caused the turn away from religion and the evils of religion, 9/11 is the turning point there, right? So somebody coming on talking about Islam, stuff like that being the driving factor behind 9/11 is going to push a lot of people away from religion and fundamentalism, right? So that'd be your big thing that is responsible to, I would look through the point that rose those, the four horsemen to prominence in the public eye.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned before, it's
So-
when an ideology embarrasses itself, it has a huge impact on public discourse and public perception.
Thank you for your responses. This is from Caleb. Why is Red here debating that debates aren't effective? If you want to address that.
Oh, I enjoy stuff like this, right? Like, I'm not coming here and arguing that me debating Tom is going to be effective, changing people's mind down here. It just, I enjoy it.
Gotcha. So this is from God of Spaghetti. Question for Red. How does he feel about some ideas gaining traction after being censored? Is it worth censoring if it means it'll push people into something?
So, what ideas that are censored that he thinks are growing? The first question.
Right-wing politics is usually the one example, because there's lots and lots of censorship of right-wing figures. Tommy Lauren, the guy with the beard, I forget his name, the InfoWars guy, Milo Yiannopoulos, Sargon, but their ideology is actually growing in popularity, even though it's being censored in many cases because it's being censored.
There's no data that, first of all, Sargon's not being censored in anything that he does. His channels are still growing, still out there. There's no censorship of Sargon. I'm not familiar with the Tommy Lauren stuff. But no, a lot of that growth, if we're going to look historically, I would look through, especially here in America, to the Southern strategy, whatever they called it, the switch in the Republicans and stuff, where they actively were going to appeal and dog whistle to the racists and push this stuff here. They're a big party that's pushing a lot of the things that resulted in the rise of extreme right positions, right? Or at least that's where I look through for history, and it's not necessarily the censorship.
Oh, definitely at that time period, that was definitely a huge impact. But I think today, the censorship is one of the things that does it. Like the fact that you do censor right-wing views on left-wing media means that the people who are right-wing never ever watch left-wing media. Whereas if you like had meetings of both, where Fox News and CNBC actually had a debate together, that would be more effective at changing people's minds than just never talking to the other side of the issue.
Appreciate the responses. This is from Space to Hickey. What does Red Vencher think about the growth of recent Nazi sympathy in Germany, where Mein Kampf it was banned?
Again, a lot of the same things. The right wing parties were like, I'm not super familiar with everything there, but a lot of the ban and a lot of the fear mongering here, Nazi images, stuff like they're, throwing innocent people in jail. So we got to open it up for there. So a lot of that's just false around that. But like for the growth of right wing sympathies and stuff here, probably outside things of censorship, probably right-wing parties similar to, like I said, this speaking, I don't know completely, but it'd be my guess is that they're doing similar things that Republicans have done here in the U.S. And that's probably more a growth in those ideologies than other things, right? That and economic crashes and things like that. So 2008 was a big turnaround, right? Into a lot of, at least here in the States, a lot of issues with like capitalism and things like that. And then you get so when there's issues and crashes and things here, we can probably look back at Germany pre-World War II, before the Nazis and stuff, and the chain, the economic situation they were in after World War One. You have two sides. So you have the rise in far left for like economic stuff, and you have the rise in far right that are based on like nationality, racism, and things like that. Right. That's probably where a lot of the rise is from the economic crash in 2008, not necessarily that it was censored. Right? A bunch of people got fucked over, and people are saying, "Oh, it's the Muslims that are coming in that are the reason." Right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's more of the political things, the bad political decisions of the government that caused the shift rather than the censorship.
Appreciate the responses. This is from Caleb, and this is a comment. You guys can respond on this if you want to respond back. This debate was effective in confirming that debates are effective. So you guys want to respond to that?
Thanks.
I don't have anything on it.
Tom, do you have anything to say about that?
Just thanks. Thanks is good enough.
Oh, okay. Well, that's. But if anyone else wants to present your questions, do it now. We're probably gonna wrap it up soon if we don't, because it's just dead air. So, I'll give it a few seconds, and then we'll probably wrap it up. Appreciate the speakers participating. Actually, got a super chat in from Stone Butt.
Really praise? Really? Just laugh at that?
This is like it's a unique name. You just don't hear that. For $4.99, thank you for your super chat. Milo Yiannopoulos is an example of deplatforming working. Nick Fuentes and Dick Spencer are also slowly being driven into irrelevance. So both of you guys can respond to that.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned before in the beginning, is that deplatforming of individuals works against those individuals. You can definitely get rid of all their money because if you're getting rid of their income source, but it doesn't change the ideology. The goal is what is going to effectively stop the ideology from growing, not necessarily what is going to stop the individual from making money. So I agree that deplatforming does work as a way to affect individuals very well, but it doesn't work as a way to affect the spread of an ideology. It usually has the counter effect.
Well, and like I argued, their reach is greatly diminished, therefore affecting the rate they can spread, right? Ideology, right?
Gotcha. So, is there any other questions in the chat? Send it quickly because we're going to wrap it up. Yeah,
Yeah, that went a lot shorter than I thought it was, but
yeah,
we could have been around circles.
right.
Another half hour before we got to questions.
Yep.
Which isn't very productive.
Went for about an
You
hour.
guys want to make a closing or anything? You guys are welcome to a closing. Well, I have an extra question though here from Philip Servanjack. What about censorship in academia? Do either of you believe certain topics should be censored in research?
No, never under any circumstances. No.
Yeah, I'm not against researching things.
Well, I mean, actually, you know what? There might be some cases like the research China does when changing human embryo DNA and trying to do certain things like that. Like that's a maybe. I mean, that stuff is questionable. I still think it's
ethical
science
stuff there, but just like if you wanted to, like what I imagine talking about would be like Charles Murray, bell curve stuff, and doing research and studies into stuff. Not opposed to making those studies or approaching those topics or doing stuff that way. But yeah, there's some of the weird ethical stuff that would violate working with subjects, whatever is something you'd probably cut off just because of ethical reasons, not necessarily because it's a bad idea to study or look into.
Yeah, that's definitely a really interesting question because there are those kind of human studies that happened in China during World War II on chemical warfare. They just started doing it or the Japanese started doing it on Chinese citizens, and we learned a lot of valuable stuff from that. But it was horribly immoral. So it's really,
I don't know enough about this stuff to say if we learned a whole bunch from it or not. I'm always because I know that's a big denialist point with the Holocaust was we gained some things with scientific discovery and stuff there, and it's like no, we really didn't discover a whole hell of a lot from killing 12 million people.
Yeah, I mean the one thing would be the nuclear weapons, which Hitler was the first one.
Well, we're talking specifically the Holocaust.
Oh yeah, specifically that didn't teach us much. But I mean,
like that's why I said when you talk about like I'm not familiar with Japanese stuff on the Chinese and all the things that are we supposedly whether or not we did or not learned from or not. I know that that's a pretty big Holocaust denial argument, or kind of whitewashing some of this that goes around.
Gotcha. This is from Vikram Parahu. So this will be for James when he comes back, when he's able to respond. So this is a question for you, James. Are you planning on having Destiny on? Do you guys want to respond to that too? You guys can.
He's been on a few times already. I don't think you have any plans in the future yet, but I believe we've had him
Destiny
on.
will debate whoever brings up something interesting. Do it. As long as you got time.
I'm sure James will. That's just my opinion. But is there? I mean, do you guys want to have a closing or anything before we shut it down?
No, I'm good. I think we've covered the topics pretty well.
Well, I'll just say that there's multiple methods to do most of what I was arguing tonight. The most effective stuff. Like, so debate isn't completely ineffective or anything there, but it's just the effectiveness from everything I've seen. It's pretty negligible for like debates in this sense. Right? Like if you're talking about talking to somebody in the street or something, or having a discussion or something out there, that's a little different than the studies show. Strictly speaking, debates like have tonight.
Thank you for your response. This is from Pepper Talks. So this is a question for Red. What's stopping you for being deplatformed for your ideas?
Well, I'm not breaking any rules. False flag stuff can happen where people mass flag and mass report my channels and stuff. And if YouTube thinks I've done something, YouTube or Twitch thinks I've done something worth banning, they'll ban me for it. Like, there's this weird idea that and I'm a tiny nobody in terms of my channel size, so I don't get massive haters. But someone like Destiny gets flagged all the time. Bosch, I guarantee, gets flagged all the time, right, from the people he upsets, right? The especially the Nazi groups that pretend, in publicly for free speech, and in reality they're not for, they use the free speech thing. Censorship, my First Amendment taking away my free speech and stuff. From behind closed doors, they don't care about. That's a talking point. They'll do it here, and they're the ones that'll consistently mass flag those that challenge them. Like there's a big issue in standing up to these kind of groups, fight back, and so these people get flagged all the time. They don't typically get kicked off, right? They don't get banned unless they do something worthy of ban, like Vosh or whatever on Twitch that got banned when he was talking about is it bombing Israel or something like that. So he got yeeted off Twitch for that. Destiny's gotten banned off Twitch before for things that violate there, but for generally.
Gotcha. So this is from Caleb. Red's avatar looks like Fred and Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Had a baby. I think you responded to that if you want.
I don't know. I mean, it looks like me in real life, so that was the impetus for her.
All right, so I'm probably going to shut this down here unless anyone wants to put a quick question in the next 10 or 15 seconds, or it's going to be shut down. I appreciate the speakers participating. It was a pretty cordial discussion. It was an interesting discussion. And check out their links in the chat. Or the caption. And so I appreciate all the super chats and all the questions also from the chat. And without saying, right. I want to say.
So hold on, I see something in the chat here. I think that's worth responding. So that's the further radicalization, if you push them away, is something to concern about. But there can be different methods to approach de-radicalization. I don't think, as much as some of the, especially the left tube personalities, the debate bros and stuff, that think they're great de-radicalizers. I don't see the any kind of data for that, because what counts as radicalization in their minds. I don't think they're taking someone who's far right Nazi and stuff that wants to gas the Jews, all this other stuff, that they're going to come over and just the debate they brought them out of. That's just generally not how de-radicalization works. But there's other methods you can do and take from there, right?
Gotcha. So this is from L Ron Durr 1. Since Vince James versus Vosh debate on here, or get a Vince James, I don't know who that is, versus Vosh.
From Red Elephants, he will, as far as I know, Vince James will not debate Vosh. Maybe he did on here once already, but as far as I know, won't go to him. They've, so.
Cool. So this is from Vikram Parahu. Has TJump thought about debating far-right people like the alt-right?
Sure. I mean, I'm open to debate anybody. I just never actually reached out to any, like, because my normal topics are philosophy, does God exist kind of a thing. I haven't really done much in the right-wing sphere of things.
All right. So we're probably going to conclude it there for the 10th time, but we'll keep it open for a couple seconds and someone wants to put a quick question in there.
Yeah, and if we go off air and if you have questions for me, I'm still live on Twitch. I'll probably chat a little bit afterwards and stuff.
Oh, well,
long as you
one of the
behave and
things, if you're
chat.
going to stay on Twitch for a while, one of the things a few of the questions was asking is, like, if we allow deplatforming, and the authorities, whoever they are, get to deplatform, then couldn't deplatforming be used against good ideas to suppress good ideas just as well as they could be used to suppress bad ideas? That was one of the questions that kept coming up.
It could. I'm not talking about government, big government crackdowns. I'm talking, generally speaking, they're not going to want to, these companies and stuff working. The incentive's not to get rid of everybody. You got to have some kind of audience and base here, and this would be another reason why the companies should deplatform, like Nazis and stuff like there, because you end up with something like the adpocalypse. Part that was blamed on PewDiePie, who's not a Nazi, he's a edgy gamer bro and stuff like there, but these new policies and stuff are going here to protect there. They have an interest financially to protect from things. It's another way to put pressure. Where I don't think there's some from conservatives and stuff towards like LGBT issues and stuff on the platform, but then you just you try to socially the other way not to do that stuff there on the platform. I mean, it's their platform. They got the rules to have on whoever they want.
Thank you for your response. This is from Elron Dur 1. Red, did you see the debate of Eric Stryker versus Mike Enoch versus the anarchists and communists on Modern Day Debate? We destroyed those leftists here.
Yeah, it was not a good showing for him there, and that's kind of the concerns about responsible platforming that James has got to deal with, right? Like, you bring somebody on, like, who was it, Caleb Alpin or whatever, anyone that was talking, who's incompetent at it there, it's doing far more harm than good. That's, you're letting somebody sit up there and basically spread their ideas unchallenged.
What about you, Tom?
Oh no, he's absolutely right. It's the same thing. Is that if you tried to, instead of Bill Nye, if you put somebody up there who's just completely incompetent, or a professor who talks gibberish and scientific stuff all the time, Ken Ham would have won the debate. So you have to put someone up there who's going to embarrass the other side. Otherwise, you're going to make them look good. So there's always a risk to doing that. If you do platform a bad idea, you have to put them up against somebody who's actually qualified to show why they're ridiculous and not make them look better.
Gotcha. That's as far as we have it right now. If you want to stay in a few more minutes to see if there's any more questions, or you guys just want to cut it off?
I'm ready to head out.
All right.
That sounds good.
Well, keep out sifting the reasonable from the unreasonable, and goodbye.